Tiffany was, and perhaps even today, is an inspiring brand in the jewelry category. The whole American market and that blue box, and the movies in Hollywood,
Movies, yeah.
it all made Tiffany something else, right? And therefore, Mr. Desai's reference was that. So, can I create a brand of that standard?
The story behind how Tanishq got its name.
Ex-colleague of mine called Meera, and one of the names she had sort of circled for Mr. Desai to look at was Nishka. He just made it Nishq. And then, in a flash of inspiration, added TA in the front.
Welcome to SapnaRise, a platform where we bring you closer to the stories, insights, and wisdom of some of the most distinguished authors and thought leaders. At SapnaRise, our mission is simple yet profound: to inspire a nation through the power of storytelling and the written word. We believe that every story has the potential to ignite change, spark innovation, and build a better future. Unlike other podcast series, our focus is solely on the authors and their stories. Stories that not only entertain but also provide deep insights and life lessons. Through candid conversations, we explore the creative process, the inspirations, and the understanding embedded in the pages of their work. Whether you're a passionate reader, an aspiring writer, or simply someone who loves a good story, SapnaRise is your gateway to the world of books and the remarkable people who write them. SapnaRise is an initiative of Sapna Book House, India's largest book mall. In today's episode, we have the privilege of speaking with someone whose leadership has been instrumental in shaping one of India's most beloved brands. We're here to celebrate the launch of the Tanishq Story, a book that not only traces the evolution of a brand, but also embodies the essence of innovation, resilience, and visionary leadership. Tanishq, a name that resonates with millions across India and beyond, is more than just a jewelry brand. It's a light of trust, quality, and elegance. With over 350 stores spread across 200 cities, Tanishq has woven itself into the fabric of Indian society, serving a diverse and loyal customer base that spans decades. This remarkable journey, chronicled in the pages of this book, is a testament of what can be achieved when tradition meets innovation. At the helm of this extraordinary journey is CK Venkataraman, the managing director at Titan Company Limited. Under his leadership, Tanishq has become a powerhouse, contributing around 80% of Titan Company's revenue, which soared past 30,000 crores in the last financial year. But the story of Tanishq is not just about numbers. It's about pioneering innovations like the Karatmeter, the Impure to Pure program, the 3,000 new designs annually, the extraordinary marketing strategies, and much more that ensured that Tanishq remains at the cutting edge of fashion and tradition. In the Tanishq story, Mr. Venkatraman shares the strategies, challenges, and the triumphs that have defined the brand's journey. This book has amazing insights not just for business leaders, but for anyone who believes in the power of perseverance, ethics, and customer centricity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming CK Venkatraman, the Managing Director at Titan Company Limited, as we dive into the fascinating world of this Tanishq story of innovation, resilience, and the unwavering commitment to excellence. Welcome, sir. It's an honor. To start off with, what made you write the Tanishq story book?
I was not at all thinking of writing a book on Tanishq, certainly, and I was, used to writing essays of interesting stuff over the years, and I had shared that with Chiki Sarkar, who's the publisher at Juggernaut, who I had got to know a few years back, and she seemed to think that I had a certain writing style which would have some audience, and it was warm, that whole thing. And then One day she told me, why don't you become well known as an author first before you write the book that you want to write, which was about living the corporate life without too much of stress. I mean, something of that kind. I wanted to write from my own experiences. I wanted to do some research as well. Then I asked about how do I become well known without writing my book. She said, you write a well known story. I said, what story? She said, the Tanishq story. And then suddenly it made sense. Yeah, I mean, it's my story also. I've been there a good part of that, and it made sense, and I ended up doing it.
Oh, that's lovely to know. And I've got the privilege to read your story. And though it has lovely insights, which has real examples of how the company, even though it had an initial starting problem, if I can say so, but it triumphed through all the challenges and made it the way it is today. But at the start of the book, the very first chapter, you have a wonderful comparison that you've written between Kohinoor and Tanishq. Even though it's imaginary, if you could share that, what made you write this story and what resonance does it take for you to, for the Tanishq story? Why is it that you have written this kind of a story at the start of the book?
Actually, this entire thing I actually wrote, I think, in 2013 or something, that particular connection, that part, imaginary story. It was done for we have a biannual conference for all our partners and for our sales and marketing and the whole team at Tanishq. We do it outside India every 2 years. And I think it was in 2013, maybe Kuala Lumpur or somewhere. And I have a presentation to make in that conference as part of the whole thing. And I had imagined this at that time. I don't recollect what led to that imagination, but it just came to me one day. This story of and we have had this history of Kohinoor being taken away from us, and it actually belongs to us, and we need it back. That's been going on for a while, right? So somewhere that and the fact that the diamond itself did not want to leave the motherland was sitting. So I presented it like that. And it made a lot of sense for the whole Tanishq crowd to be compared with the
The
soul of
Kohinoor,
Kohinoor and all that. And they all rah-rahed it saying, yeah, yeah, good show, guys, like that. And it was there. It was just a 15-minute presentation way back in 2013, and it was left in my memory, so to speak. And then when I was writing that book, it came back to me, and I said, why not? It's an interesting way to start it. And then we spoke to Chiki and her colleagues at Juggernaut, and initially it was not, hey, it's too filmy, man, something
right?
like that. And in the current version, I closed that chapter by saying that uh, obviously it's not true, like that, right? Whereas in my original version, I had not done that. I just left it as if it is the soul of uh, Kohinoor, which resides in Tanishq, or which has become Tanishq. And that obviously is not true. And so by changing and adding that line, we concluded that it made a good start to the book.
No, I think it's a wonderful way to start the book, because the benchmark of Tanishq right now is definitely the benchmark that probably India has for Kohinoor, or Kohinoor has for India. So I think the analogy made was great, and it really gave that sparkling effect before we start the story of Tanishq. Let's set the stage now. Let's talk about the origins of the Titan Industries. So Titan Watches was established in 1984 as a joint venture between the Tata Group and Tidco, right? So, before we start really talking about Tanishq, can you share the vision behind Titan and the key figures involved in its creation? Who were the people who actually created Titan, which later on the same founders created Tanishq? So, a little bit on the background of Titan before we delve into Tanishq.
So, like you said, it was a joint venture between TIDCO, which is the Industrial Development Corporation of Tamil Nadu, and the Tatas. The watch business was the first business, launched in 1987. Very good immediate success because of many things we did. And we were growing at a very good clip in the early 90s. And some of the components which were used in the watches were imported, and therefore the import bill was climbing. And we needed foreign exchange, and India was not in the kind of position it is in today in terms of the reserves, and therefore companies were encouraged to export. And we couldn't export watches in that day because the world was full of watch brands. And there was an idea that the managing director at that time, Mr. Desai, had to design, make, and export jewelry. And he got this idea from somewhere that he went to, and a jewelry plant was set up in Hosur, close to our watch plant, and we designed the jewelry, made it, and tried to sell it. But we're not done, enough research, customer side, what kind of products, which countries, what customers, what kind of products, and the world was full of, and India was also full of manufacturers of jewelry, and so we struggled, and it was a big investment of some 65 crores or something like that at
at
that
that
time,
time.
a lot of money in 1993. And then they said, oh, we've got this investment. India is a large jewelry market. Can we use that investment to make a mark here? But unfortunately, somewhat like what was done for the international market, we did that without enough research work for in the Indian consumer markets. So Indians wanted very traditional jewelry, 22 carat gold jewelry in very traditional showrooms. We made very Western jewelry, all 18 carat with diamonds in very, very elite kind of showrooms. So on every count, it was not right for the market. It struggled for a few years till in 2000 a new team came and reimagined many things, and then there was no stopping Tanishq after that.
And also, a lot of some part of Titan, you said that the founder of Mr. Xerxes Desai, he was part of Tata Press, and then he got into Titan, right? So the journey was again when he pitched an idea to the Tata Sons board that he wants to do something in the watch business, or was it something that came from the board to him that hey, this is an interesting space, why don't you look to handle it? Because he was part of the press at the start
So he
of
was the
Titan,
managing director of Tata Press,
right?
and when he was there, he and another colleague of his and a senior executive of Titan later, Mr. Manchanda, the two of them dreamed up this opportunity of getting into watches and quartz watches as it became later. They pitched it to the Tata Sons board, and because of the rules prevalent at that time in the country, which permitted uh, governments and small and medium enterprises to get into the watch industry. So we needed a collaboration with the government, and there were some fortuitous meetings with some secretaries in the Tamil Nadu government and all that, which preceded this, and
Correct.
that's how TIDCO came on board, and the whole joint venture got formed.
So you spoke about the founder, Xerxes Desai. He was your mentor, uh, the leader that you looked up to. He was also the founder of Titan and Tanishq. So, in this one line, how do you like to define Mr. Desai's leadership, or something you like to share about his style of working?
I don't think I knew of him before I joined Titan. To my best recollection, Titan was starting to become well known, and it looked like a very good company, watches and beautiful watches and all that. And the success of Titan was reasonably well known. It was 3 years after Titan started, and it was a Tata company. So
Correct.
successful lifestyle Tata company, and that was my reason. I joined, and I met him a couple of days after I joined the company, and he was a very people's person and very open to youngsters. And I was quite junior in the company at that time, but because I was also in advertising, which was a very subject very close to his heart, I had access to him because of the nature of my responsibility. And he has had a huge impact on me. He gave me all the stuff I know today about design, product design, I knew nothing before I joined Titan. Today, I would consider myself somewhat of an expert on that subject. And he taught me and continues, in a sense, to teach me, even though he's not here today, because of the exceptional standards that he had for that. He taught me to be more of a humanitarian, than I was. He taught me to dream bigger than I could. Earlier, he sort of sharpened my sense of humor, and he ultimately led the way for me to sit in his chair, which I never imagined I ever would. But I ended up doing that 4 years back.
I think that defines the mark of a leader, where he makes sure that the people who he is working with become as brilliant as the leader is. So, the distribution of knowledge is one of the key successes of a successful leader, is what I would take away from Mr. Desai and the relationship that he had with you, and I'm sure with most of the employees there.
Yes, and also giving them total freedom to fulfill their own capabilities and pointing to a distant dream and saying that's what we want to go. These are the standards or these are the qualities which cannot be compromised. The rest of it you figure out. That kind of a freedom, and therefore each of us end up expressing ourselves in a particular way. Not all of us necessarily end up going to that end in the same through the same route. We may take go like this, somebody may go like that, but the standards, finally the standards of customer experience, product innovation, operating processes, those standards cannot be compromised. The ethics and integrity of our the way we do business cannot be compromised. But the route can be different. Somebody could go maybe high value, somebody could do premium, and so on, and somebody could do more distribution, somebody could do more retailing. That's just a method of reaching there in some sense.
So, sir, I would like to talk about a very instrumental aspect of Titan, the soundtrack of Titan. I mean, all of us who have bought watches from Titan have definitely heard to this piece of music, the Mozart Symphony Number 25. It did play a crucial role in shaping the brand and the identity. So, why was this particular symphony number chosen, and what was Mr. Xerxes Desai's role in this strategy? It was a lovely soundtrack, and like to know more about this.
I was not there myself when that happened. It was before I joined Titan. But what has been recorded is I think they wanted to give a certain international personality to the brand. They wanted to have a mnemonic, an audio mnemonic, which would jump out and make people think of the brand even when they're not in front of the television. And with all this, there was a person called Suresh Malik, who is a creative director at Ogilvy, who was our
Okay.
advertising agency. So I think it grew out of a conversation between Mr. Desai and Suresh Malik and the 25th Symphony of Mozart. And finally, then it got expressed in multiple ways over the 3 plus decades, 4 decades now.
Is it still in use
Yeah, of course.
in the
Yeah,
Titan ads?
yeah. In
Wow.
the watch.
In the watch
Yeah.
ads, yeah.
And even in sometimes in the wherever Titan comes, like Titan I Plus is also a Titan brand.
Right.
So sometimes in Titan I Plus
I
also the
plus
track
also.
comes. Yeah.
I would like to understand the rapid success of Titan just after it was launched. In the early 1990s, when Titan was established, Titan went through a rapid growth. So, what made this growth story? Was it the mechanism that Titan used, or was it the strategy of the Indian consumer, or was it generally the demand of good quality watches? So there was HMT already in the market, and I'm sure there were others in the market too. So, what made the rapid strides of Titan initially just after it got launched?
For some reason, uh, the mechanical watches were the leading category in India when Titan came in. And it was so natural if Titan had also got into mechanical watches. But, one very critical evening when this was discussed, I think in 86 or something, Mr. Desai listened to everyone and decided next morning that we'll get into quartz. And that's how we got into quartz. And quartz is fewer parts, easier to make, more accurate and sleeker, and therefore slimmer, the movement, and therefore the watches could be sleeker. And of course, Mr. Desai's design sensibilities was sensational. So we created a product line which looked something else, and nothing like that was had been seen in the country. And we also filled a full page of newspaper with some 50 or 60 models. And the headline said, to buy watches like this, you don't have to go to Dubai or Singapore or London. Introducing Titan Quartz from Tata. That was that headline, the brand in between 50 watches. It just blew the mind of people, and people would come with the paper and say, show me this, show me this, show me this kind of thing. Just took off like that and never stopped after that. And then we introduced the Titan showroom in 1987 or 88, which was a altogether very different kind of. Today, showrooms are so common. But in 1987, a watch showroom which had windows, stories written about watches inside those windows, very beautiful lighting, and very, very air conditioned, a very polite, friendly, knowledgeable staff. It was unheard of, unknown. And then quickly, showrooms were rolled out across the country with partners, franchisee partners. So between a sensational product line, looking product line, of course, the advertising, then we started promoting this as a deadly gift and an expression of love, affection to your wife, to your daughters, and so on and so forth. And deep distribution with showrooms. And of course, a quality. It was an extremely durable, reliable product. And the nation just lapped it up because of this combination.
Talking a little bit more about Mr. Desai, I mean, he's someone who you've really looked up to, and he's the one who envisioned Titan. He further also envisioned the jewelry business for the Tata Group. Specifically, sir, if you could discuss, how he s- he went about the jewelry business. How did he go about pitching the business to the Tata Sons, and what was the response of the board, and how did he stamp this idea in the hearts and minds of Tata? More about how he started the jewelry business.
See, the situation was that we had got into manufacturing of jewelry, invested 60 plus crores to export jewelry, and that was floundering. It was not working out. And the attention turned to India. Otherwise, that entire 65 crores was sort of, in a way, not giving returns. And so, why don't we create a brand for India? Was the uh, natural thing. I am not, very sure myself what exactly happened much before I got into Tanishq. But the circumstances were clearly a reason because we had to recover a very large investment. But one of the directors at that time who I interviewed, and I mean, that's covered in the book as well, Mr. Ishat Hussain, who was,
Right, the
I
CFO, I
don't know
think.
at that time, but certainly later the group finance director of the group, but he was on the board of Titan Company. So he told me that, look, I almost fell off the chair when Xerxes suggested that we launch a brand in India because my idea of Indian jeweler was the owner sitting on a gaddi in the store, right?
Right.
And I couldn't figure out how it could be corporatized, was what he told me. But because of the situation, we ended up getting in, and of course, we did it in a particular way, which was not connecting with the market at that time, struggled for a few years, and then reimagined that. But the reason why we got in, the reason why the Tatas let us, in a sense, was because we were in a spot.
Interesting. So, one good thing about the Tatas, what I'm able to understand now, is they really listen to their team in terms of any feedback or in terms of any new innovation. So, I think Tata normally we call the company or the conglomerate as a conglomerate from pin to plane. So, I think these new innovations and developments has happened because of entrepreneurs within the company who wanted to start something new, and Tata really let them speak or give them that kind of freedom to imagine, to innovate.
Certainly.
So I think that's an
It's very
important
much,
takeaway.
yes, of course.
So once Mr. Desai put forward the proposal and you explained to us, how the board really gave its acceptance, but initially the business did face a lot of skepticism, particularly from some of the key Tata leaders like Mr. Anil Manchada. Can you share the initial conversations and challenges you faced in setting up Tanishq? I mean, what challenges did Mr. Desai face once the approval was given? What were the initial challenges, or maybe the market survey, maybe the initial plant for manufacturing, or the export house that you had? So, what were the initial challenges that you faced?
See, the jewelry plant that had been set up was to make what is called a cast jewelry,
Right,
where the gold is actually made through the frame. If I take a ring, for example, the ring is made through a casting process, or the pendant is made through a casting process, and diamonds would be studded onto that
right,
piece later, right? Now, most of so the form of the jewelry that came out was very Western, often minimal in its appeal. I mean, look, which was just not the kind of jewelry that Indians were buying in 1996. Indians were essentially buying handmade jewelry, what is called a filigree jewelry, which is typically made in Kolkata.
right.
Made
The
in other
by the
parts,
Karigars of
the
Kolkata,
Karigars or the artisans.
artisans.
So it's very, very intricate, fine, very ornamental,
Right.
uh, overdone from a Western point of view, and in 22 carat.
Right,
And because jewelry was also Stridhan, even more so in those
right,
days, a big part of the weddings, even more so in those days, the jewelry differed from state to state. The Punjabi jewelry was different from Telugu jewelry was different from Gujarati jewelry and so on and so forth. Whereas this was Western jewelry, 18 karat diamond, one type, just didn't connect at all with what the customers wanted. But the plant was capable of making only that. So we had to make that, or we ended up making that at least. And we didn't also do any kind of deep research that there is this disconnect. We decided that maybe we will try and influence customers' tastes. And we set up stores which were very, very elite. The advertising was very, very Western and elite. The store staff were uh, formal,
more sophisticated in their approach.
more sophisticated, maybe more, not maybe, I think they were speaking English. And so on almost every count, uh, it was not connecting with what the market wanted, and it failed because of that. And then it needed some transformational thing to come by for it to change.
So when the Tatas decided to invest 65 crores in the setting up of the plant, you're saying that it was purely to make jewelry for the Western world or the European market. Then the shift came in terms of understanding the Indian consumer mindset. So this shift was understood after the export business converting into a retail setup, or was it something that was understood much earlier than setting up the retail stores?
See, actually, uh, the newspaper reports of that time
Mhm.
also referred to a possibility that these would be retailed in India as well.
Right.
But the primary focus was for exports. And that's how it actually started operations, but sputtered and didn't go far. And therefore, maybe the domestic thing was also there in the back or second
Right.
stage. It sort of got accelerated, pushed to the front, but without any preparatory work of a deep kind that was required to actually launch. So we have a technology. Now let's connect it with the market kind of thing, as opposed to what does the market want, and let me just build everything from that point of view was not done. And that's the background to why it struggled for a while.
So when you launched Tanishq for the Indian consumer, It wasn't Tanishq, it was Celestial.
No, it was launched as
It was
Tanishq. It
launched as
was
Tanishq.
imagined as Celeste,
Celeste.
but between that imagination and the final launch,
Okay.
I think we,
Because in the book, you've also mentioned about a newspaper article which mentions
yeah,
Celeste
yeah.
as a brand.
So that was, I guess, because Mr. Desai is no more, so I'm not able to reconfirm that. But
Mm,
from whatever other people I've spoken to is, and I also remember because I was in the company,
right.
and the name Celeste does ring a bell, and it's something to do with the availability of rights
Okay.
across the world, because we also wanted to take the brand later outside India, I
Right.
guess,
Right.
or even in India, maybe Celeste was not available, and Tanishq was created as
Mm,
the name for the brand in India, and we launched it as Tanishq.
as Tanishq. And in the earlier months, Tanishq faced challenges shifting from an export manufacturing house to the domestic jewelry market. And you also spoke about what prompted this shift. Was it a successful shift right from the start of the domestic approach? You mentioned about the retail sophistication of stores. Was it something that was it something which was good or was made to realize that this is not working out? So when was the realization that the sophistication of the retail approach in terms of your stores, in terms of the way a customer is entering the Tanishq store is not really working out. So when was this realization? Was it the sales numbers, or was it customers not really, or giving some feedback to the staff there? So how does this realization take place?
From what I interviewed the person who actually set it up, David Saldana,
Right.
and I interviewed a colleague of mine who was the store manager at that time for this first store. In the first few months, the signals were quite clear that the products were not really right, and the pricing was also maybe an issue. But more than that, the products
The
were not
products.
there, and the stores were too elitist, the staff were too formal, the advertising was just not connecting, and all that. But I think Mr. Desai wanted a unique brand, and he didn't want Tanishq to be one more 22 carat jewelry.
Right.
So while he sort of relented and permitted 22 carat jewelry to come in, which it did come
Mm,
in, David himself talks about bringing in 22 carat jewelry, but it was not sort of substituting the substantial 18 carat with 22. It was just some pieces
mm,
into the store kind of thing, which gave some respite. But Mr. Desai was quite, I think, convinced that for Tanishq to ultimately succeed, it needed a distinction. And he was not convinced about whatever was coming his way as a modified strategy. So I think he didn't, I'm just imagining
sure.
this. I think he didn't give in. And
Mm.
perhaps it was a good thing because it took the carat meter to come a little
Right.
later, 1 year later, to give that difference. That we are not one more 22 carat jewelry brand, we are the Karatmeter brand.
So there was also some contest in the book that Mr. Desai talks about adding diamond, more of diamond to the gold to make that distinction. Can you talk us through that?
Could you just elaborate? I'm a little unclear.
So in the book, it says that to make that significant difference for Tanishq as a brand was to add more diamond to the gold. So more than Tanishq positioning itself as a gold jeweler, it was more towards the diamond side of things.
Yeah, so actually by then the Western markets had grown substantially into selling diamond jewelry. More and more Western customers were buying diamond jewelry. And just like what we had done in the watch market of sort of leapfrogging into the quartz
Right.
technology at a very rapid pace, Mr. Desai felt that we could convert or start converting the Indian customers also to diamond jewelry. And since we had anyway a plant of that capability,
Right.
so let's create Western jewelry with diamonds in a market which was virtually all about gold, but we would change the tastes of customers. So that was a bold bet, but it didn't work.
I mean, we spoke about the sophistication of the store. It was clear that Mr. Desai wanted Tanishq to be the Tiffany of the East, with the modern store design, the approach of customers in the store, the kind of service the store would give. In fact, it's also mentioned in the book that one had to take an appointment to enter the store. So it definitely did have that aura that hey, I'm going to Tanishq, and finally, having my jewelry made from the best in the market. So did the entire Tiffany of the East really change the way in which Tanishq functioned, or was it something which Tanishq didn't really take forward with?
So in a sense, Tiffany was, and perhaps even today, is an inspiring brand in the
Right.
jewelry category. And it's an iconic brand, very prestigious brand. Everybody would love to be. And the whole American market and that blue box and the movies in
Movies,
Hollywood
yeah.
had all made Tiffany something else, right?
Mm,
And therefore, Mr. Desai's reference was that. So, can I create a brand of that standard
mm.
in terms of design, in terms of quality, in terms of finish, in terms of box, in terms of retail experience, and everything? And therefore, David, went to Europe, went to many cities, looked at uh, the upscale jewelry stores, including Tiffany, in those cities, and came back. And we, partnered with an architect here and created a boutique which was of that type, which is very upscale and forbidding to a lot of people. Not at all like what you would have seen, not like just not like any other jewelry store in the country. You couldn't even make out sometimes that it was a jewelry store because it was full of marble frontage and a very small window in which one piece was kept just in case you wanted to know what was inside, kind of thing. So that was the whole definition of the Tiffany of the East drove many of these things, pieces, to sort of synthesize that Tiffany of the East dream.
So, like the name Tiffany, Tanishq has a very futuristic approach to its name. And there's a story behind how Tanishq got its name and the people involved in creating the name. Can you run us through the name of Tanishq and how it got into or came into existence?
So, obviously Celeste was not available, or a decision was taken to drop it. And then people were searching, and there was a ex-colleague of mine called Meera Harish, and she was in David Saldana's team, and she was assigned to help put together a name, and she was poring over many books on jewelry. And one of the names she had sort of circled for Mr. Desai to look at was Nishka, Nishka, and it looked like he um, liked it, and then he pulled out and wrote it, and then he just made it Nishq and knocked out the Ka and put a Q, and instead of leaving it with a K, he put a Q, and it's almost like a Persian word as
Right.
opposed to an Indian word. And then, in a flash of inspiration, added TA in the front, and that TA could be for Tata, it could be for Tamil Nadu, it could be for both, and that's how Tanishq came
Would you have
about.
preferred Celeste, or Tanishq is something that resonates more with your personality?
I don't know about my personality, but I would certainly have preferred Tanishq.
Tanishq.
It's got much more exoticism in it. It's more original because Celeste is, in a way, coined name. Tanishq is an original name, and therefore that originality also adds some mystique to it.
Right. So, in the Indian domestic jewelry market, there were a lot of unorganized jewelry sellers, manufacturers, resellers. And Mr. Desai believed that there should be a different strategy that Tanish should embark to make it different from the already selling jewelers. And this he did by offering more diamond jewelry than gold. So, can you elaborate on what was the strategic shift and how adding more diamond jewelry really made a difference in the way Tanish functioned ahead?
Firstly, the handmade jewelry was what the Indian consumers preferred. Now, why they preferred that is very difficult for me to say. But that was the jewelry which has been made for years and decades. And because it was wire drawn, filigree work, it was more ornamental, it was more fine. Whereas the cast jewelry was more, uh, minimal, you know. So 22 carat is what they preferred. And so, in a way, it was more pure because it was closer to 24, which is the pure form of gold. Uh, 18 was not. And we were getting in 22 carat into our line. And there was a sort of grudging acknowledgement of this thing while maintaining the hope that one day we would convert people to 18 karat. You must be referring to that annual report,
Right.
which is there in the book as well. But it was still not completely 22 carat. It was not fully dil khol ke, let me
Okay.
adopt 22 carat kind of approach, because I think Mr. Desai was maybe justifiably so also, now that I imagining, not wanting yet another 22 carat jewelry brand called Tanishq.
Right.
And therefore, he was a little wary of the speed with which we were moving in that direction. And he was putting brakes. I mean, that's my feeling. Till some unique proposition came along, and that came along in 1997.
So, in this entire shift from 18 to 22, your ads, your communication, everything spoke about the bigger picture of the gold in terms of Indians wearing the 22 carat real gold or the bigger gold or the more gold. So there was a lot of that's when your book states about a lot of consumers, or rather, Titan or Tanish realizing that there was an under caratage happening, and which made you strategize or bring out the innovative carat meter in the market. So can you walk us through the entire concept of the carat meter? How did it change the game for Tanishq in terms of trust, in terms of people coming into the stores, if not for buying, but at least to check their gold in terms of how much carat that their jewelry have? So a little bit about the carat meter and the innovation and the impact it brought in the business of Tanishq.
So the team had known that multiple jewelers across the country were selling under carat jewelry at that time, making it out to be 22 carat or even some other 23, 21, and all that. But essentially, what the customers thought they were buying versus what they were actually getting, there was a difference. And we knew that because we were melting that jewelry and actually testing them and confirming. But there was no way we could, prove that uh, short of destroying or melting every piece, and that's practically not
Not
possible.
possible.
So the team knew that they had a story, but they didn't know how to tell it. And they visited, I think, the Basel in Switzerland, the Basel Fair in early '97, and they saw this machine, which is called the X-ray crystallography. And that machine could actually identify elements and metals and actually pinpoint the proportions and all that. And they re-engineered it with the uh, help of the manufacturer, and that was the called the carat meter. The carat meter was a non-invasive way, which means without destroying, without melting the product, but at a level of certain microns, non-invasive way to determine the purity of that jewelry piece. So with that, now we could, any jeweler's gold piece that you had bought, you could bring it in, and we could tell you, without melting, that it's 20 carat, 19 carat, or 18 carat, or whatever it is, and in a way ended up showing customers what they actually had, and that was the turning point of Tanishq. Uh,
But also a lot of other jewelers in the market, they did not like the fact that the carat meter was introduced by Tanishq, and there was a lot of issue in terms of they fighting with Tanishq, So how was that phase, and how did Tanishq overcome that?
I think with a lot of resilience, a lot of grit, um, because some of the stories I've heard is, people throwing stones on the facade of the store.
And they were actual stones. I mean, they were not stories. Yeah.
Correct, correct. And jewelers calling to threaten the Tanishq store staff not to
Mm.
demonstrate the carat meter, not to release ads of the carat meter. But I think it was, it's one of those nothing can stop an idea whose time has come kind of things. And I think this idea prevailed over that. And I think customers' pressure, the industry also must have realized that. And it's not as if the entire industry was in that place. Certainly, good jewelers as well, and they also over time adopted, started
I mean,
using
you
the
had a
carat
very
meter.
bold campaign around the carat meter, which had uh, which had the communication that there's a thief in your
Family.
family.
Yeah, yeah.
So how did that go, and how was the response to that ad? Because it was a very bold ad, a very clear cut, crisp communication that, hey, from wherever you bought your jewelry, it may not be the carat that you have paid for, and there could be a thief in your family, which means the jeweler that you trust. So what was the response to that bold campaign?
So somebody in Lintas at that time, um, I think Vinod Mulacheri, if I remember right, copywriter. So he beautifully connected this family jeweler,
Right.
because the word that
Mm.
was used was even today family jeweler, and undercarriage. So he connected the two and came up with this line: "Beware, there's a thief in your family." And it was very bold. It certainly was controversial in a sense, but it was also very clear that only those jewelers who sold you substandard stuff, we are calling out. We are not. So
Correct.
if your jewelry is 22 carat and the customer brings, we test it in the carat meter, we are not calling you out. So there is no need for you, if you are
Right.
22 carat, to get all worked up. Whereas if he did that, you're calling out and he better be called out. So it was something like that. And therefore, even though there was obviously those who were doing that were under pressure, they were the ones who got the stones thrown or threatened or whatever it is. But like I said, it was way too powerful for it to be
How
stopped.
many stores did Tanishq have at that time when this entire campaign was running?
I don't know, maybe 15 or 20,
15, 20 stores.
I guess, something like that.
And your journey of Tanishq, if I can start that off now, was somewhere in the year 1990,
In
is
Titan,
in Titan.
yeah,
That's when you joined Titan as a marketing manager, right?
advertising manager.
Advertising manager. So how is it when you joined Titan? There was Tanishq was just, I think,
Not there.
not there. I think 1993 or
Tanishq is 1996
1996 is when
launched in
Tanishq
India.
launched. The first, I think, 13 years you were part of Titan.
Yeah,
So, and then you were shifted to
Tanishq.
Tanishq.
Yeah.
So, if you could help me understand your first 13 years in Titan from the advertising manager position to, I think you were head of the watch business before you got shifted to Tanishq. So, the initial years as well as your journey in Titan before Tanishq.
So I started as advertising manager, became marketing manager in 1992 or 93 or something like that, and remained as the head of marketing for close to 10 years after that, till 2003. And in 2003, and all the brands of in the watch business, Sonata, Fastrack, all that, Titan, of course. I was responsible for the marketing of that. And in 2003, there was a restructuring in the watches business, and I became the sales and marketing head
Okay.
of the Titan brand, which I remained. I was there for 1.5 years before I moved into Tanishq.
Okay, and how's Jacob Kurian's reputation in the company? You written in the book that he was a very tough boss, and at a time you feared to report into him, or you had some assumptions in terms of how he was. So, how was your journey with him? And finally, when you actually had to report into him, your view changed about him. So, a little bit about Jacob Kurian and your working style with him.
So this is actually now nearly in 1997, before the Vasant Nangia leaving incident.
Okay.
So in 1997, and Jacob Kurian had been in the company for 2, 3 years by then, in the international marketing of the watch business and jewelry business. So his reputation was a very demanding. He had worked in the US, a very demanding, tough, blunt-speaking person, and not the typical nice people of Titan that we were used to.
Mhm.
So when I came to know that he was going to be my boss, I was quite worried and anxious and wanted to quit. And but a better sense prevailed after a couple of days of thinking about it. And then I ended up, working in his team for 3 years. Loved every bit of it because what you think about somebody versus what you finally end up experiencing. And even though he did turn out to be tough and blunt speaking and all that, but at the same time, very inspirational and a lot of things to learn from. And I
So
loved
you were
it.
with him for three
3 years.
years.
I was with him for three
So he was
years.
a good influence on
Yeah,
your leadership
he
style.
shaped my own personality. Definitely. I owe a lot to him, yes.
And somewhere in 2000, there was a discussion again between the Tata Sons board and the Tanishq to shut the jewelry business down. Maybe the numbers did not favor the board, or the growth was not as exciting as the board would have thought it to be. So, what happened in 2000, and why did Tata Sons wanted to shut down Tanishq?
So actually, steadily from 1996, it was a struggle in any case. And Tanishq was, really losing money, and Titan company was under pressure because of
Hmm.
the jewelry division. We didn't have a strong proposition. People were wondering why we were in it. The Titan board, Tata Group, Titan watch division employees, including, I don't
Yes.
recollect,
Mhm.
but I'm sure sitting in the watch business, even I must have been thinking, why are
What
we in this
next?
kind
Yeah.
of thing? And then Vasant and team left, and it was almost like the last straw on the camel's back kind of situation when Mr. Desai brought in Jacob to head it. And it looked like Jacob was sort of presiding over a closure,
Okay.
which was imminent. Okay, but
And then by that time, you were also very much in the helm of Tanishq.
no, no, no.
You were still
I was
part
in
of the
watches still.
in the watches still.
3 more years to go before.
Before Tanishq.
Sorry, 4 more years to go before.
Okay.
So it was. I was in watches. I had nothing to do with jewelry. So he.
But at that time, the news was also prevailing in the Titan part of the division that Tanishq is going through a rough patch.
Correct.
Right.
It was known that Tanishq
No.
was going to the rough patch, and the rumor was that it will be shut
Right.
because we don't know how to make it work. Okay.
Hmm.
And then Jacob, who was my boss till very recently, and he had just moved into a strategy role in the
In the
company,
company. Yeah.
he was brought back into operations
Hmm.
to head Tanishq when Vasant and team left. And then he did many things. Uh, and I think in about 9 months to 1 year, the turnaround was starting to become visible. And by the end of second year, the turnaround had been achieved.
So the turnaround in the book, you've mentioned that an important innovation of the impure to pure strategy that had been applied by the brand. And that came after Jacob visited one of the stores, and he understood that the carat meter was giving or letting the consumer know about a problem but not necessarily a solution. So, can you help me understand more on the impure to pure strategy, and how did it provide the complete solution to the carat meter and probably help Tanish come out of the tough phase?
Yeah, so like I said, in 1997, the carat meter was introduced into the Tanishq stores and created all that tension in the industry. But apart from telling a woman that her jewelry was 18 carat or 17 carat, we were not doing anything else. And at that time, we didn't think we could do something else either. But after, therefore, the impact of the carat meter was not very high between 97 and 2000. Sometime in 2000 or maybe early 2001, Jacob was in a Bangalore store standing just observing, and one customer was marching out of the store in anger, and he was wondering what, and then he went and understood that, spoke to her, and she said, "Look, you're only interested in making us feel miserable by telling us what we bought is impure, and we're not doing anything about it. What's the point?" And she just stormed off. And then Jacob went back and said, "My God, yes. I mean, we're not. We're just providing some misery to the customers, and we're not solving their problems." And when they brainstormed, then they said, "Yeah, if we give some value on the impurity to them and pick up some value of the impurity ourselves, maybe they'll buy." And therefore, Impure to Pure was, as an idea, program was created. What it meant was, it was called 19 is equal to 22, which meant that if you brought in 19 carat jewelry, let's say 100 grams of 19 carat jewelry, we will reckon it as if it is 100 grams of 22 carat jewelry, and you can buy it.
Provided you buy jewelry from
The Tanishq,
Tanishq
from
store,
Tanishq.
right?
Okay. But if it was lower than 19 carat, you had to pay that difference. Suppose it was 18.
Right.
That 18 to 19 you pay, 19 to 22 Tanishq pays.
So Tanishq and the
Customer together helped solve the
help
problem.
Okay. And you also mentioned that initially when this calculation or the mathematical or the financial calculation was put forward to the CFO of the company, he didn't really take it in the right way and he didn't want to proceed with it. So what happened there?
So without sort of complicating it for the viewers, uh, the CFO is naturally worried that because 19 equal to 22 means 3 carats. Titan was giving, Tanishq brand was giving free to the customer. 3 on 22.
Right.
3 on 22 is close to 12%.
Right.
So in a category like jewelry where the uh, profits were margins were
Marginally
low,
less, yeah.
12% is way too much.
Right.
And therefore the CFO was naturally worried that how will we make it work? What sense did it make? But Jacob was betting on the fact that the customer who came in with 100 grams of
Would buy much
would buy
more.
maybe 200.
Right.
And therefore
The
the
margin
12 would
drop,
be
yeah.
6 on 200.
6, yeah.
And therefore it made sense. And that's what actually happened.
So this innovation, which was kick-started or which was suggested by Jacob, like this, there were many other strategic decisions that Jacob Kurian really gave the company and helped the company move forward. So some learnings or something that you would like to share of his leadership style and what kind of an impact overall from the time Jacob stepped into the role of Tanishq till recently, like you said, he was your boss. What was the kind of impact that he left on you from a leadership point of view?
Certainly the ability to prioritize like which big rocks needed to be focused on, galvanizing people to stay focused on those big rocks, calling spade a spade, totally blunt, and not pussyfooting around things. The value of time and punctuality and doing things on time, engaging everyone around the problem, and driving a deep sense of ownership among people. These are the kind of things that he did there, and before that, in a sense, with me. But our situation was not like we were not in a burning platform situation. So some of these qualities were not evident to me
Are
when
you
he
a
was.
tough boss?
My people will have to say that. I'm not like Jacob. I'm a very different person. And each of us has to play to our strengths. So when Jacob was my boss, the situation in the watch division was not at all like we were a leading brand
Right,
and
yeah.
all that kind of thing. So he didn't exhibit some of those qualities in my situation, but he did it later. But what?
When it was required,
Yeah.
he did it. Also, in the book, you mention about certain schemes of the government which Tanishq really took advantage of or used it as an opportunity, be it the gold on lease scheme or the harvest scheme, or something that is mentioned. So, a little bit about these schemes which helped push Tanishq in its sales and also customer focused driven schemes which help the customers buy gold and jewelry in an easier way.
Yeah, the gold on lease scheme is actually it's a banking system product, global banking system product, and it's in a way the use of central bank gold.
Right.
All central banks across the world, including RBI, have
Okay.
tons and hundreds of tons
Absolutely,
of
yes.
gold, and in a way they let those,
They lease it out.
yeah, they let them be leased out, and they lease it out at very low interest rates,
In the form
and
of a bullion or in the form of
in
a
the form of bullion,
bullions.
24
Okay.
karat bullion,
Bullions.
and it is leased out at low rate with long credit periods, 180-day credit periods, and a risk protection methodologies, which I won't elaborate and make it difficult for the audience.
Right.
So this was discovered by the Titan Tanishq team in 2002, and that became a big driver of inventory build up and scaling up. So that even today
Even today.
continues even today, and a good part of Titan's overall inventory is funded by this gold on lease. So that's gold on lease, banking system product.
Okay.
The golden harvest is a Titan product
Okay.
which existed in the industry,
Okay.
and we learned from them, and we created our own product,
Oh,
Tanishq.
that was something that was created by Tanishq.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a golden harvest, which is a jewelry purchase scheme.
Okay. Which helps consumer
Consumers to save, let's say,
save more.
5,000 rupees a month
Okay.
for
So
11
like an
months,
installment kind of.
55,000. You
Thing.
get a certain discount from Titan
I think
for
the
leaving the
12th
money.
month is 12th month is something that Titan puts in the money for, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which is the discount in a way
Discount.
we
Yeah.
give. And the customer typically buys up,
Right.
just like in the exchange.
Right.
If she has put in 50,000 bucks, she may add another 30, 40,000 bucks and buy something for 80,000 bucks. So this plays on uh, the Indian habit of saving to buy
Okay.
things, and became a huge hit and continues to be a very powerful driver of growth for Titan as we speak.
And you think that these kind of products that jewelry business houses come out with, uh, there may be many in the market, or is it only Tanishq who is leading the innovation in terms of consumer focus or consumer centric products that help consumer buy jewelry more easily, or is it something that almost all jewelry houses across the country use these kind of schemes, or is Tanishq the market leader in these schemes?
Uh, I think many of them, if not most of them, would have, if I take the Golden Harvest kind of product, but the scale that we took it to before others came in and realized, I think we did it much
Much
faster, much
faster.
bigger. And the other big advantage we had was the trust of Tanishq and the Tatas.
Right. Yeah.
To leave the money with
Right.
a
I think
jeweler.
I've seen in the book that most of the ads, the initial ads as well as the ads which run even today, uh, the, the the tagline or the construct of the ad falls back on it's a Tata product. So I think the trust which Tata as a business house has built has is also seen or is also used by the brands under Tata.
Correct.
And another story in the book talks about the Femina Miss Universe or Miss India campaign. You can tell me here, you can help me out here, where Tanish was given an assignment to create the crown for the Miss Universe or Miss India. And the design were initially rejected. And further, it was accepted later on. So, can you share us this story? It's quite a fascinating story.
Yeah. So
And
the
was it part of your tenure
it was
once
just
you
a
joined?
little. No, it was not. It was before I came in.
Okay.
But the head of design of Tanishq, Elizabeth Mathan, who did that, was also there when I was there. So I know
Okay.
her very well. So Elizabeth, so this assignment had come from Femina.
Was it the Femina Miss Universe?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Which is the Miss India universe, Miss India
Miss
world,
India
Miss
World.
India,
Okay. That
that thing.
lineage. Okay.
The team designed a very, very modern kind of thing, and the Femina people thought they were too modern and wanted us to soften the design approach. And Elizabeth and team stood firm and said, no, if you want it like that, we are not interested. You can go to somebody else and get it done. Tanishq is Tanishq, and Tanishq will do it in this manner only. And what's the point in you're wanting something which is run of the mill? Do you want something different? And in a way, pushed back and made them convinced, and then created what they originally wanted to create. So in a way, the self belief that brands like Tanishq and different departments of the brand needed to have, this was a demonstration of that self belief.
And as a marketer yourself, design is something which plays a very important role, specifically in the business that you are in. But with design comes perceptions. You may like a design versus I may not like a design. That's what happened with the Femina case. So within the company, when there are multiple designers working towards reaching that product, or maybe a jewelry design or a watch design, or whatever it could be, or a brand communication, how much of your inputs go into suggesting the team that this is the way to go, or this is the way we could look at things? Because they might have a different perception, but you at the helm of the business right now, how much of your inputs go into the design part,
I
or you leave it to the heads of the design teams?
yeah. Because what I do, I mean, or what I did at that time certainly is bring in a substantial customer centricity into everything.
Right.
So, which
And that's
means
been the
that,
crux for
yeah,
Tata
which means
and
what kind of products does the customer want?
right.
What kind of products?
So you brought in that vision
Yeah.
to the design
Therefore,
team.
like in which parts of the category are they bangles that needed
Right.
substantial reimagination? Were they necklaces?
Right.
Are they, finger rings or earrings or whatever it is? So that in a way would be a starting point. What kind of weights? What kind of price bands? Thereafter, the whole deep design story. So, okay, we are doing something for the state, and can we, like, very recent, but nevertheless, 2 years back, the Chola collection that we did for Tamil Nadu, or inspired from Tamil Nadu at least. And because the Chola dynasty is a
Dynasty.
big part of Tamil history and culture. The Ponniyin Selvan movie from Maniratnam was about to be released a few months later, which is from the Chola dynasty, and therefore partnering with the vendor to create that line. So the deep design story was Chola. And thereafter, the actual detailing and all designers too. So it is finally between the merchandising function, which needs it in a certain price band, product, weight, and the design function, which is looking at this is the inspiration from the temples of Cholas, the chariots of Cholas. And so on the one side is sales, and the other side is brand and design, and working together, pushing each other so that the best finally emerges, and it not just sells, but it strengthens the brand, it satisfies the customers, delivers the profits, and all that.
A very interesting part. We'll talk about how Tanishq and the movies made a difference in terms of creating such jewelry concepts a little later. But before that, at the start of your book, when you have dedicated the book to Mr. Xerxes Desai, you also mentioned that uh, the day in June 2000 when he asked you to go out of his room, or in very crude terms, asked you to get out of his room because you wanted to leave the company. So who would have thought? I mean, right now you leading the company, but in 2000 there was a time that you wanted to quit, and you already had an offer from another company. So what made you take this decision, and what was the conversation with Mr. Desai, and what made you stay back?
So what had happened was uh, something led to my getting a little disenchanted with my role in the watch. Uh, I was in the watch business
Right.
in 2000,
And I
and
think at that time you were at leading the
I was the head of
watch
marketing.
marketing
The head of
division,
marketing,
right?
I
So
was
that was
not.
pretty much the rising part of your career. It was you
Yeah,
were at the
and
top
I was
of
doing very well.
very well, yeah.
Jacob had been my boss
Right.
and just moved into the central
Center
strategy
stage,
role,
huh?
and I was doing well, but the business had been a little bit sluggish for the last previous 2 3 years. The domestic watch business, not in any trouble, but
Hmm.
not sort of growing at the
At the
pace at
pace at
which it
which
used
you,
to be.
yes.
So something led to, I don't remember exactly, but Then the Levi's HR
Proposal
people had
came in.
reached out to me, marketing head of Levi's in India, cool brand, international brand. I had a lot of respect for the brand and young, whatever, all that. And the idea of wearing jeans to work.
Work.
I could have worn jeans to work in Titan also, but whatever triggered. So I decided to leave.
Right.
And my bosses tried to make me stay, but I was very stubborn. That's when Mr. Desai called me to his room and sort of lambasted me and shouted at me and said, "How dare you leave family?" And the whole notion that Titan is a family, I never even thought of it like that, but I came out of the room really troubled by that and immediately decided that I'm going to stick around and went back and told the Levi's people, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm staying back
Of
with
course, they were
Titan."
upset, but the dramatic response that Mr. Desai had in this episode, it did leave a mark on you.
Very much,
And
very much.
today, when you remember him, uh, I'm sure that the legacy that he has left not only within the company but in your mind and heart would be enormous. So some people are not to be forgotten and they can never be forgotten. So Mr. Desai's dramatic response did really make you the way
Yeah,
you are today in terms of your position.
its impact in making me stay, which of course it did. But more than that, I think the word family that he threw at me has come to define. I mean, I just talk no other word today. Not just me, and so many of us, all of us in Titan, use the word family so easily. And to me, uh, my precise recollection of that word is from that day. Others may have had it in their hearts and minds earlier, I don't know. But for me, it is now 24 years old that the word family and Titan become synonymous.
Right. So moving in your career at Tanishq, there was a point in your career where Biju Kurian, who sent an SMS to you informing about,
Harish Bhatt.
Harish Bhatt leaving the company, and I think you were riding your cycle to the company, and then you immediately replied to him. Can you let us know what was the reply and what was the impact of that entire, uh, you know, situation there, and what made you, reply to Biju the way you've replied, which is mentioned in the book. So throw some more light on that episode.
Uh, I think firstly, I certainly was disappointed sometime in 2002 when Harish Bhatt uh, joined the company. And nothing to do with Harish Bhatt, he's a good friend. But I thought I could have got that job in Tanishq. And Jacob was the one who hired Harish Bhatt.
Right.
Why did he hire Harish and not
Not you.
ask for a transfer? Me to be transferred was something I was feeling bad about. But anyway, that passed. So 2 years later, I'm in the office, and Biju, who was my boss, sends a message saying Harish
He's
is
leaving
leaving Titan, and he was leaving Titan for another Tata company,
company.
a transfer only, but he was leaving Titan. And so somewhere, the fact that I had lost out to Harish 2 years
Two
back
years
for that
back.
head of marketing and sales job
So you wanted to
was
get that job.
no, this is a CEO job. This is a
CEO
higher
job,
job,
right? Right.
but and by then Tanishq was also doing better,
Right.
unlike 2 years back. So I immediately messaged saying I want that job. That was my message. And then I spoke to Bhaskar Bhatt, who was the MD,
The MD that time, yeah.
a couple of hours later, and Biju told me 2 weeks later when he finally they gave me the job that one of the things that was in my favor was I really wanted that job. So the speed with which I jumped in and said,
Right.
messaged and said I want it, and also I've told a lot of people when an opportunity shows, throw your hat immediately and you know
And
sort
when
of
they knock at your door, you just have
tell
to
people that you
dive in.
want it,
Right.
as opposed to take your time about it kind of thing, which certainly helped me.
And as your when you became the CEO of the company, what was your first assignment, and how did you go about? Was there any change or shift in your leadership style?
Uh, I don't remember any assignment like that, but I do remember this whole Paheli movie came in the early part of my stint there, and I was raw, knew very little about jewelry, so I don't recollect. But I remember that movie coming and I was sponsoring and all that. Certainly, from a style point of view, I remember I had two senior deputies. One was Govind Raj,
Okay.
who I knew for a long time. He was a Titan veteran, and he really helped me to actually get into my new role. And the other was L.R. Natarajan, who was the head of manufacturing, and he was a new entrant into Titan just a couple of years. So one of the things I remember doing was uh, going into the factory, meeting some of LRN's deputies, and started off conversations about some initiative or the other, and in a way going over his shoulder
Okay.
without really meaning anything,
Unknowingly.
but starting off something without involving LRN, right? And then Govind, LRN was disappointed with that. I mean, why is Venkat not involving me in this kind of thing? I was doing it with all the good intentions, I guess, but not the right way. So through Govind, I got the feedback. Govind was fine because we were friends, kind of, but LRN and I didn't know each other. So you also need trust
Correct.
to exist for you to do things like that. I realized that I was, messing it up in a sense, and immediately I withdrew and, in a way, followed the protocol, if you can call it that. And that's something from a style point of view I recollect
That's the initial.
initial.
And you also mentioned in the book that you worked very closely with your college friend Santosh Desai on the brand positioning once you took over the job of the CEO. Who was Santosh Desai, and what kind of work did the two of you do to improve the brand position of the already well positioned Tanishq?
So Santosh Desai is a brand consultant, social commentator, very well known. He writes a very
Right.
a regular column, City City Bang Bang,
Hmm.
in the Times of India today also. So Santosh had been assigned by Harish
Okay.
Bhatt
Okay.
a few months before Harish left on the whole brand proposition.
Okay.
And by the time it was nearing presentation, Harish had moved. So one of the things I got to see early days in my role was the customer value proposition, which is revitalizing tradition.
Okay.
So Santosh said that tradition is at the center of this category, whereas Tanishq is playing in fashion,
Hmm.
thinking jewelry is fashion. Jewelry is not fashion, it is culture.
And when you say tradition, it's more about the weddings and more about, you
Well,
mentioned earlier,
Indian,
Indian, that
yeah, all the Indian
Beti,
codes, the
giving jewelry
festivals,
to your
weddings,
daughter's
festivals,
weddings, all of those
all of
things.
those things. Whereas we were into fashion and Western dress, swimming pools. The visual vocabulary was very, very Western. So he presented that soon after I came in. And I connected with it somehow. And then we developed the agency, advertising agency was also involved in that. And we developed our first film. And it was called The New Tales of Tradition,
Okay.
using those learnings.
So we speak about films, right? A lot of films that Tanishq has been part of. So is it a part of your core positioning that you want to be part of films and you want to showcase your bridal jewelry or your more exquisite jewelry in films with when actresses wear it? You also, I think, Jodha Akbar is one, Parinita is one. So a lot of films that Tanishq has worked with. So you think that is a core of your brand proposition, or that's just part of your brand proposition?
It's not, I would say it's core, but it's been strategic. We had, like I said, Paheli, but that was a very small thing. First big one was Jodha Akbar.
Jodha Akbar.
Second big one was Padmavat.
Padmavat, okay.
Paheli was the sorry. Parinita was not.
Was not
No,
part
no,
of
it's not
Tanishq,
part of it.
okay.
That's more one of our ads was look like a
Okay,
Parinita
okay.
film thing. But Jodha Akbar and Padmavat, and they established Tanishq really as a serious jeweler, wedding jeweler, Kundan, Polki, which is a big part of Indian weddings. That establishing was done because we created those jewelry for those movies.
And how much of your notion towards leaving the branding to a brand manager versus leaving the branding or the brand position to a CEO uh, differ? You feel that a brand manager is someone, you also mentioned in the book that the CEO should be the one who takes a final call on how the brand should be perceived, how the brand should be looking at, what is the positioning of the brand. And that could be directed through a brand manager. But a lot of companies look at brand manager as the one stop solution that, hey, you need to define the brand's journey. So you have a different take to it, which you have mentioned very subtly in the book. So your take on a CEO's role in branding or marketing versus a marketing team or a brand manager's role.
Uh, See, the thing is that if I was in a let's say, a category like soaps, for example, right? Now, I may have a portfolio of, let's say, 5 brands,
Okay.
and each brand is catering to one particular segment, and the brand manager is creating a positioning for the brand that she's handling or he's handling. Uh, let's say that's one situation.
Right.
But if I'm playing in a category where the brand manager's personality and the customer's personality, life state, aspirations, needs, if there is a huge mismatch
Okay.
between the brand manager's everything,
Take.
I'm saying a 25-year-old, very Western brand manager versus a 40-year-old, very traditional customer
Right.
who's buying jewelry for tradition and all that. And the brand manager is not at all from that world of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So she or he is imagining the brand in the way that it appeals to her. And therefore, so if I were to take the positioning of Tanishq in 2003 and 4, it was like that. If you see the ads, they're very Western, where, there is one where the jewelry, she just breaks
Throws.
and throws, the diamonds fall on the floor, which is
That's
like almost
unacceptable.
like a
It's a
unthinkable.
crime
Yeah,
in India.
unthinkable, right? I mean, the codes of jewelry, I mean,
Right.
it's such a precious thing and
Right.
it's such a
To
sacred
be
thing
honored
almost.
and
Yeah,
preserved
correct,
and
correct.
all that.
So, which is okay. Today, maybe in a brand like a Mia,
Yeah.
you could do that, for example, because
It's more of a
it
fashion
is
or
for
a,
that customer.
that
It's a
customer.
25-year-old,
Correct.
30-year-old
Correct.
customer.
Younger crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. Therefore, that we were playing in culture and tradition, that decision could not be left to the brand manager to take.
Okay.
It had to be taken by the CEO. Then the brand manager executes to
Executes
that
it.
positioning. Yes.
I
So
think it's a
that,
wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful takeaway for the viewers and specifically for a lot of business houses because uh, a normal differentiator between the work that a CEO does and the other departments is a CEO normally runs more or less the finance part of things, a little bit of the business strategy, the innovation, but rarely does a CEO get involved in the branding part, which to a large extent we see in Titan as well as Tanishq because it's a very marketable brand because of the product that it is dealing with. And as rightly you said, giving that vision and then further the brand manager executing it is something which is possible, and that's what Tanishq has done. So just tell me quickly, we'll go back to the movie part of things. So the concept of movies in Tanishq or Tanishq in movies was a strategy that was started by you. I mean, of course, there were a lot of movies that was done before you were at the helm of it, but you still continue or look at movies as a very important aspect of promotion, or when you're launching something new, you want to get associated with movies, or the kind of jewelry that you make and for the movies.
It was actually not started by me, but it happened in my time.
Okay.
I think the way it came was somebody from Ashutosh Govarikar's team
Okay.
uh, for Jodha Akbar
Right.
reached out to us. And then it also came to me finally from the teams. And
Right.
And I was really captivated by the idea. And we were in the early stages of making Tanishq a serious jewelry brand.
Right. Okay.
And a Rajput, uh, you know, princess, Muslim prince, Jodha Akbar, and that was a very well-known story in any case.
Correct.
And Ashutosh Gowarikar
And the
was,
film also did really well.
yeah, Ashutosh Gowarikar and deadly stars,
Absolutely.
Ritik and Aishwarya.
Right.
So we knew it would be a hit, and we knew the jewelry would be very visible.
Very visible.
So it
Right.
was a very actually easy decision to take, frankly.
Okay.
And then Padmavat. By then, after we did it, we became confident. Padmavat was
So I
more
think
we sought.
you would look at mythology or the historic movies as your
We also
genre
did
under
a movie
movies.
like Race.
Is it? Okay, I'm not
Yeah,
aware of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay.
Where you had,
So was it a brand of Tanishq that was promoted in race, or
yeah,
was it Tanishq itself? Like a Mia or
no,
something, Carrot
not
Lane Mia.
Mia. Um, I forget the name of that sub brand, but it was a very modern, nothing like Jodha Akbar or Padmavat. Very modern, young woman's jewelry was promoted in Race, but because the jewelry was also so small,
Right.
it didn't, sort of become visible in the movie also. Whereas here it was like big necklaces, big kangans, and big, you know, jhumkas and all that. So they were in your face in every frame. Right.
So today, just to delve more into this, when you look at from a sales point of view, is your wedding collection sold more than your maybe a younger or a fashionable collection, or is Tanishq contributing more versus a Carrot Lane, which is also acquired by Tanishq, or a Mia, or Zoya now that we also have. So, how do you differentiate between your different sub brands, and what type of revenue in terms of its percentage would be? How do you rank each brand in terms of sales and revenue?
So we have a very good portfolio today, and Zoya is a luxury brand, um, catering to the what I would call a discerning, wealthy segment, global in their outlook, global in where jewelry is really a statement, an expression of their individuality for a woman. So it's a very different space. Tanishq is the main brand of the company, which caters to young women. It's for daily, it's marriages, it's for special occasions like parties. Um, you can buy a Tanishq for 10,000 bucks. You can buy a Tanishq for 3 crores. It really spans. Um, Mia is totally for young women, and it's got a very special design language. It's omni-channel at its center kind of thing. Uh, Carrot Lane is a little broader in its appeal. It's, I would say, a mix of Mia and Tanishq in its customer profile, not as old all the way up like Tanishq, because even the products stop around 2 lakhs, but uh, younger than Tanishq. So it's a, I would say it's a mix. And wedding jewelry is about 25-30% of Tanishq sale, but which is a lot of,
Which is a lot in terms of
in
value.
any case,
Yes.
in any case.
Yes.
Yeah. And Tanishq is far and away the number one in the portfolio, with Carrot Lane being number two.
So the online segment does contribute to a major part of
For
your
Carrot Lane, for
portfolio.
Mia, less for
Carrot
Tanishq.
Lane is predominantly online. It also has offline stores, but it started online, right?
It
It was
started
acquired
online,
as an
but
online
today
store.
it's got, I think, 200 some plus stores. A lot of stores.
Also, I think more in the malls and all of that.
No, high
High
streets
streets
also.
also. Okay. Coming back to the book, I mean, your first international store, to what you mentioned, was in 2008 in the US. And then immediately after that, there was the entire recession that took place. So, how did the entire international first store react to this recession? And overall, what was the recession like for Tanishq?
See, our confidence in the uh, Indian diaspora market in the US was not very strong in 2006 when we started imagining our stepping out.
Right.
We felt that Indians outside, and particularly in the US, will want to be like Americans, and therefore the market for Indian jewelry will not be
As
sustainable
high, yeah.
for.
So you were still making the Western design
No,
jewelry
we
for
were not
the.
making.
You're not making.
No, we
Okay.
wanted to enter the
Okay.
US, and should we be catering to the Indians in the US
Okay.
or others in the US was a question.
Right.
So we debated this. I was not part of it at that time because so much because the responsibilities were a little different. I was responsible for Tanishq by then, but only for domestic.
Okay.
The international responsibility for Tanishq was with some other team,
Okay.
another CEO. So at that time, the thinking was that we should go after the Americans with
Okay.
Tanishq,
Right.
which we did, but failed. I mean, we got everything right in terms of inside the store, the Americans were loving the jewelry and all that, but not enough people were coming into the store because Tanishq was unknown. And the global crisis hit in 2008, and it became too much of a long haul problem, and we shut shop and came back.
So talking about the challenging years, we had the 2008. There was also the 2013 to 19 challenging years that Tanishq went in, where the government introduced a gold import bill. What was the gold import bill, and how did Tanishq face it as an issue or a challenge?
So we had a problem of current account deficit that the country faced in 2013, and our foreign exchange reserves were low. So the government had to do something, and government felt that gold imports were really non-essential, and so they brought in restrictions on that, and you had to export. If you exported one, you could import four, you
Okay.
know, and 80-20 rule it was called. And we were not at all an exporter, so major tension. We scrambled a lot, and uh, we had some divine help, if I can call it, that the temples like Tirupati were recycling the gold that customers, devotees
Would
left with
left
them.
with.
That gold was available with SBI, and SBI was a partner bank for us, and they helped us. Birla Copper is a copper company, and gold is a byproduct of copper smelting, and they had gold. So we scrambled and somehow managed in those many months. And fortunately, by the time we were starting to feel the pinch, the CAD crisis was also passing, the import controls were relaxed, and
So the scheme basically meant, just from my understanding, is that a business house in jewelry had to export more than cater to the Indian market. Was that
not
why?
export more.
Okay.
You had to export at
To
least one
import.
fifth of your
Okay.
production. So 80 domestic, 20
So
export.
ironically, what Tanishq started as an export house
Hmm.
uh, was something which really the government wanted Tanishq to do that in 2013.
In a way, and we struggled to do that because we didn't have any, we had no export presence at all, and we had to scramble to show some results, which we did, of course, but
Mhm.
it was not really material in tonnage. But because of some of these domestic advantage of from State Bank to Birla Copper, and the banks had also imported some gold before the controls came into place, and we were a preferred customer. So all these helped us to weather the storm for many months, by which time the government relaxed the overall. The 80-20 went, imports became possible, all that.
So
It passed,
it passed.
but
Okay.
it was there for some months.
So in your book, you also mentioned in 2015 there was a closure of a scheme. Correct my
The
memory, but
golden
the
harvest,
golden harvest scheme. So it did really impact Tanishq, right?
yeah, big
In
time.
a big time. So can you help me understand? First of all, you already mentioned about the scheme earlier, but just to reiterate on the scheme and how did it impact when it closed
Yeah, so the golden harvest scheme was where a customer would pay, let's say, 10,000 rupees every
in
month for
installments,
11
11
months,
months.
and the
And there was
company
a
would.
Tanishq scheme, you said.
Golden harvest was a Tanishq.
Tanishq scheme.
and the company would top it up at that
Right.
time with 10,000 rupees, and the customer would buy whatever,
Right.
uh, at least that much or more. Now, these schemes were not regulated by the government, but there were some other uh, scandals in the country at that time, and investors or customers lost money. So the government, in a very sweeping law, brought all these schemes under the, I think if I remember, Public Deposits Rules or something like that, Companies Act.
Okay.
So, and this meant that companies had to go to their shareholders to get permission to run these schemes. The companies could not give a return of more than 12% per annum on these schemes, and the total deposits could not exceed 25% of the net worth of the company. So these three things were brought in, and we had to wind down all our deposits.
Oh, that was a
Customers,
big hit.
yeah, for
Big hit.
2 years nearly, we had to wind down first everything, come to zero, then go to our shareholders and get our new schemes approved, then start the new scheme.
And you were the CEO at that time.
I was just here.
Yeah. So you handled this entire crisis.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all of us, yes. I was the CEO that
But
time.
probably the biggest crisis before COVID hit in for you.
Yeah.
Another issue
Demon.
when
Demon.
the demon
Yeah.
happened in 2016, and
16.
then Tanishq sales, I think, slowed down for the next 2 3 years. So
No,
all of this happened
Demon.
together: 2015, 2018,
Sure.
and 2020.
I think 2015 was probably bigger than
The
actually
demonetization.
14.
14. Okay.
14 is the golden
Golden
harvest
harvest. Huh?
problem. It was probably the biggest, I mean, before COVID.
Right.
But the import thing was not such a, we somehow managed. And it was more a supply side problem, whereas golden harvest was a sales, demand side problem.
Okay.
Because every year we were securing sales for the future with golden harvest.
Right.
And that was lost for 2 years. So it went like that and came back. So, but I think we didn't lose our cool. It was not a failure. It was a regulatory challenge which we dealt with very well, I should say, and it taught us resilience, grit, patience, calmness, and all that. Demon was different because Demon was more. What happened was, for some time, it put some pressure on cash sales because all the cash had gone out by the time that's 8th November ended or whatever. But it was more an event rather than a continuing issue, whereas Golden Harvest was a continuing issue, COVID was a continuing issue.
So in this entire phase from 2013, 15, and 20, in the middle, you had a personal. I would say the company had a personal setback, but for you it was more personal when Mr. Desai passed away in 2016. So you've not written much about your emotions on this news, or what you felt about the passing away of your mentor. So anything you like to share in terms of how was it like when you got to know about his demise, and maybe your thought process after that.
I was in my room in our office, and Bhaskar, who was my boss, an MD, just dropped in and said, Mr. Desai has died. And he had tears in his eyes. And I mean, I was just jolted,
Shocked.
and I also had tears in my eyes. And, we had been, like, he had left the company for many years, and we were not in regular touch.
Okay.
So it was a little bit distant in that sense. And then the funeral was held in Hosur, and it was almost as if the whole town had turned up because so many people in Hosuri had touched, and we were reliving memories of working with him and all that. And then I shared my own, this whole 2000 wala story that he threw me out of the room to.
To many
Then
others.
everybody came to know that I had actually resigned from
Resigned.
Titan. And my God, that guy is now CEO of Tanishq. That was also
Yeah, it's quite
unbelievable
a
at that
story.
time also.
Yes.
Just like what you're saying now,
Yes.
at that time also. And that happened. And we moved on.
I think in 2019 is when you became the managing director, and that news was given to you. I mean, you had to fill Bhaskar's shoes. He was the managing director. So was it something that Mr. Desai would have told, even though he had left the company, and before his passing, that he would have told the board that this guy is someone who should lead or should be at the helm of the business? Or was there, you think, any kind of talk that the board would have had before Mr. Desai passed away, that what next in terms of the next 5 6 years? Do you look at, or do you see people in the company who could take this journey forward? You think there was something that like that happened, or was it a very smooth transition between Mr. Bhaskar and you, and there was nothing more beyond it?
I don't really know, but I suspect that Mr. Desai wouldn't have had anything to do with the board.
Okay. Since he was a founder, and
I know,
since
but he wouldn't have had anything to do with the board by that time.
okay,
I'm sure he may have, because Tanishq had by then become a big part of Titan Company,
right,
and therefore Venkat succeeding Bhaskar was not out of the question
okay,
in by 2015, let us
right,
say, when he was alive. But I don't think he had any role in the matter by then. He'd been out of Titan for 13 years.
right.
So I suspect. I wouldn't know for sure.
No, the reason I ask is because normally the founder has, though he's out of the company, but certain key decisions in terms of maybe the journey or the strategy or the key people who will be taking it forward, they fall back on the founder to get his understanding of,
No, I
what
understand what you're
next is.
saying, but I'm just going from there is no interaction between the board and Mr. Desai because I was part of I was reporting to the board every quarter as
Correct.
CEO, right?
Right.
I've never seen Mr. Desai anywhere in those meetings. So I'm just guessing,
Yes.
but because it was so many years.
Another aspect in the book that I probably missed asking earlier, I don't know whether it was under your helm or was it, I think it was under Mr. Desai itself. There was the
Karigar Park.
Karigar Park, right? So the Karigar Park, and I also in the book you mentioned about speaking to the two brothers who established the Karigar
Yeah,
Park.
yeah.
So what was your role during that period, and how did the Karigar Park come into existence, and what is the position of the park as of today?
It was before my time.
Right,
So one of the problems that Tanishq had was the high cost of manufacturing,
right,
and particularly in gold jewelry, there were these aggregators, and there were these head karigars of the
the
artisans,
artisans who
and
make the
then there
jewelry.
is the actual karigar artisan who made the jewelry.
Right,
So it was in Jacob's time, and
Jacob's time.
yeah, in
Right, okay.
2002, I think, when he said, "How can we make it a cheaper production?"
Right.
And these two brothers, who I know very well because they're still with us,
This
they
still
sh-
at the Karigar Park in
they
Hosur. I mean,
set up.
they
They
set up
moved
everything.
from Bombay. Kamlesh and Rajesh Vyas. They moved from
Right.
Bombay to set up the first Karigar Park
They were
in
Gujaratis.
Gujarat.
Yeah.
In Hosur.
No,
It
sir.
was a bold step for them to move.
Hmm.
They set up the Karigar Park in 2002. Karigar Parks are still there and
So this
prominent.
move basically meant that the agent who would connect the jewelry business house to the artisans was eliminated.
Actually, agent would be maybe too simplistic a word. I would call that person an aggregator who funded the Karigars, uh, who in a way took the gold risk, and who financed even the maybe salaries and all that, and made the whole thing work better for the head Karigar. Whereas
Okay.
we were in a way directly dealing with the head Karigar through
In this
this model,
Karigar
through
Park.
the Karigar Park model. And the head Karigar became the owner of the Karigar Park, which
So
continues,
he would employ the
yeah,
karigars
let's
on a
100.
monthly basis, and the salary would be given. So the fear of not earning during the lean periods was eliminated. One of
That,
the
of course,
better benefits
that,
for the karigars,
yeah, yeah.
and I'm assuming also a better lifestyle and a better facility to work in, because in Calcutta, to whatever we know or we've read about how jewelry making happens, it's not the most cleanest of the job.
Uh, uh, but that was a different program. What you're describing
Okay,
is a transformation that we did, including in Karigar Parks.
okay,
The Karigar Park itself did not contribute to that transformation. The Karigar Park eliminated the cost,
Okay.
and reduced the cost from the whole process. The Karigar, the what we call Mr. Perfect Plus, and all that
Hmm.
came later, which is the manufacturing transformation that you are describing.
Interesting. But a very, very, a lot of innovations we can hear or we can learn from the story of Tanishq. I mean, from the carat meter to all the number of designs. I think you make about 3,000 plus designs every year. To this Karigar Park also, I feel it's an innovation. I don't think a lot of business houses would look at a concept like this. So Tanishq as a company, of course, with the support of Tata and with the value system of Tata, has really been the leader when it comes to customer center approach, be it in terms of marketing approach, be it the innovative products it's got in place, the portfolio it's got in place. So when all of this is happening, and something like a COVID just hits in 2019-20, what was the innovation or what was the strategic innovation that you at the time the helm of Tanishq and Titan uh, took to ensure that the COVID was not deeply impacted from a demand point of view, from a supply point of view, from a stakeholder point of view, being a listed company, the kind of emotions that everybody would have in the market. So, what was your uh, communication, dialogue, discussion within the boardroom when this situation or the global crisis took place?
See, one of the best things about Titan is we are a very stakeholder focused company,
Right.
which means that we give a lot of importance to employees, vendor partners, retail partners and distributors, communities, government, planet, all the time. And when COVID hit, they were all going to be affected. But we put, in a way, the shareholders in the end of the queue, in a sense. And mm, our focus was not on minimizing the losses.
Okay.
Our focus was keeping our partners and our people
Happy.
motivated, confident, engaged with money, with emotions, with conversations,
Right.
talks, and all that, because we knew that they will only bring back the business
Right.
and make the shareholders happy, satisfied, and all that. So that approach was it's not an innovation, but it was a philosophy, it was a strategy, and that worked. So everyone was very calm. They were very confident that business will rebound, and in true Titan style, we also gave them the freedom to experiment, do whatever you want and get the customer.
Okay.
And that thousands and thousands of people in
Mhm.
the stores, in manufacturing, sort of grabbed the problem of demand and production and everything and solved it without too much of supervision. So that uh, I ended up calling it in our 2022 or 23 annual report as being good is good for business.
Being good is good for business.
We were good.
You, the nice people in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
house.
We were a nice,
And I think
we
that
were good to people. And
ideology comes because of the family concept that you all are part of.
also, I mean, family is one definition, but I'm sure there are other companies who may not use the word family,
Right.
but still do the things we do.
Well, I think we're more or less on the closure of the first part of the book. For the ones who are listening to the conversation, the book is divided into two parts. The first part talks about the story, the journey of Tanish from the time it started till the day it is today. And the second part talks about specifically your leadership style, the kind of message you want to give out to young entrepreneurs, to learners out there who are trying to run their own businesses. So we'll delve a little bit about your leadership style and the things that you have done in Tanishq, which has made Tanishq sustain its growth and maintain its lead in the market. So, moving to the second part of the book, where we learn from CK Venkataraman's journey, the leadership style, and the kind of innovation, the kind of strategies he has put in the business. To start off with, in the book, you've mentioned about the Kaizen philosophy. What exactly is this philosophy, and how did you go about imparting this? Is it a concept which you have taken from your learnings, or is it a new concept that you have put in the company system?
Kaizen actually means continuous improvement. It's a Japanese concept, and it comes from the belief that every single person in an organization has something to contribute. And if the organization were to sort of enable them to participate in a process through which they contribute, it'll be fabulous for the organization. So that's a very well practiced thing in the manufacturing systems of India as well, but never in retail. And one of my colleagues, Shaman Bhaumik, actually the credit goes to him. He moved from manufacturing of Tanishq into retail in 2005, and he brought Kaizen into retail, and we never looked back. And in fact, just this morning,
Hmm.
uh, I flagged off the National Digital Kaizen Mela in our office campus. I mean, it's a coincidence
Okay.
where the top 24 teams have come to present their final ideas to the jury. So this is thousands and thousands and thousands of retail staff and of course manufacturing staff figuring out problems in their life,
Hmm.
in their operations, whether it is customer experience or efficiency or whatever, and solving it and going further. So therefore, using the power of the collective as opposed to saying that those who have studied in big colleges, those who are senior in the company, they are the people with ideas, they can only do strategy. No. Everybody has got the potential to contribute, and you use the power of Kaizen to extract that.
Oh, very impressive. I'm sure that through this strategy, the stakeholders, specifically the employees,
Employees.
get a lot
So
of
it's
inputs
yeah,
and
so it's
they
both
get
an employee
motivated.
engagement program as well as a crucible of great ideas for growth, for efficiency, and all that.
Last question before we move to the fun part of the segment. Speaking of employees, um, Tata is known for its people first approach. How do you view your role in the supporting and motivating of employees? Uh, One is the Kaizen, but anything else that you have done to keep the employees right at the helm of their motivation and their contribution?
Two things. One is that we ended up formally changing the name of the function to people function from human resources function because we have always believed that human resources are a wrong word for describing people. Resources are more inanimate things, and people have feelings. So the employees are actually people.
People.
So the chief people officer heads that function. And everything that we do is defined by that. Our open door policy, our non hierarchical approach, our the freedom that the junior most person in the room has to speak to the senior most person without worrying about the chain of command and all that, the freedom given to experiment and fail and pick up and run as opposed to being worried about not taking risks. So that whole different way of maximizing the potential in each person, seeing only the good things in people as opposed to worrying about the weak aspects in their capability set. Us visiting, taking the time to visit the trenches, as I call it. Like I have certainly, been in the trenches, which is the front lines of whether it is manufacturing or sales, but being the front lines all the time and listening to them and building a lot of changes in our strategy, policy, because of the feedback coming from the people who actually meet customers, franchisee partners, salespeople, karigars, you name it. So this whole ear to the ground, literally all the time, has been a big part of the success.
Oh, I think this is very inspiring because this is like an MBA crash course. Whatever we heard over the last a minute or so, if these points are well structured and really implemented by a lot of businesses, entrepreneurs, I'm sure that because they say customer is the king, but I think in your philosophy, even though customer is the king, but the actual soldiers who protect the king are the employees, and which is what you've done it so well over the last so many years. So kudos to Tanish, kudos to you,
Thank
your
you.
leadership, and the entire lineage or lineage of leaders under Tanishq. So we have CK Venkataraman, the managing director of Titan Company Limited, going to be answering certain rapid fire questions. And let's see the fun part or the fun aspect of Mr. Venkataraman. The first question is your proudest moment as an author, your first book, and what has made you so proud about this book?
When I saw it on Amazon and there's a review sitting next to it, I couldn't believe. I had to pinch myself.
What was the review like?
It was a good review. It's a good book. You should read it.
Fantastic. Okay.
And it was
Uh,
a 5-star rating. Yeah.
5-star
Yeah.
rating. Okay. I'm sure a lot of 5-star ratings coming through. Are you a morning or a night person?
Very early morning person. I'm a 4:30 a.m. person.
Every day, even Sundays?
Uh, yeah, on Sundays.
Wow. One habit you follow every single day as a ritual?
Sleep for 7 hours.
7 hours. You sleep early since you have to wake up early?
Yeah. When I'm in town, yes. Otherwise, I don't. But I add up 7 hours somehow.
Somehow. Okay. The most inspiring place you visited?
Navsari, the birthplace of Jamshedji Tata.
And was it recent that you visited the place or?
I went to pay my respects and take his blessings before I took my new role in
As a
October
managing
1st
director?
as managing director.
Wow. Veganism, as we all know, or many of you would not know, but Mr. Venkatraman is a vegan himself. So, veganism, is it a skeptic? Are you a skeptic of veganism or a believer?
I'm a believer in. What do you mean by skeptic?
Skeptic meaning, are you someone who looks at veganism only for yourself? I mean, you want others to also become vegan, or you just believe in veganism?
No, I would certainly like others to become vegan because it's a good thing to do.
It's
Yes.
made your health and life better.
More than health, I think I got into veganism because of a deeper understanding of what happens to animals.
Right.
And I think others should also know that. If they know that, they're likely to become vegans.
Wow. Work life balance, is it easy or challenging for you?
Very easy for me. I call it work life integration, where
Okay.
it is I seamlessly blend.
So you have enough time for the family despite your busy
Yeah,
schedule?
and I could be on a beach on holiday, come back to the deck chair and answer a mail, go back to the water. So
Okay.
I call it work life integration.
Integration. Lovely. Tradition or innovation? What do you believe in more?
Innovation.
Innovation. Lovely. I also believe that you like to cook. It's one of your hobbies. So, any favorite dish that you like cooking?
Kanda poha
Kanda po. That's a breakfast dish. So
from
I'm hoping
Mumbai.
that you
Mumbai.
invite me for breakfast one day. Reading spot, cozy corners or outdoors?
Cozy corners.
Cozy corners. Okay. If you could share one book with the world, which would it be?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. And the movie? The book is better than the movie, or the movie is better?
Both are good, but as a which movie, like I keep thinking with the movie that's warming up more and more as my most favorite is Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I've seen it so many times. Love it more and more every time I see it.
Wow. So you find meaning in between the lines every time you watch
It's
it.
such a
There's something new
it's
that you
such a
find.
hopeful movie.
Hopeful
Most
movie.
hopeful movie I know.
Right. Interesting. Have you ever judged a book by its cover? It could be any of your employees, any of your bosses, be it.
Nothing I can recollect.
Okay. When you like to unwind, you like to unwind with the family, or a solo relaxation is something that you look forward to?
No particular choice. It comes, it happens, whichever way.
One word to describe Tanishq
Beautiful.
and one word to describe Sapna, because you've been to Sapna Book House and you're part of Sapna podcast today.
A lot to discover. I mean, it's not one word, but it's a phrase.
Okay. Well, another hobby of yours is that you like to sing. You're a good singer. I'm going to request you, if possible, for you to share your favorite song, and if you're okay, to sing probably a line or two.
Maybe I'll do an English.
Lovely.
In a bar in Toledo, across from the depot, on a bar stool she took off a ring. I thought I'd get closer, and I walked on over, sat down and asked her name. When the drink finally hit her, she said, I'm no quitter, but I finally quit living on dreams. I'm hungry for laughter, here ever after, and after whatever the other life brings. In the mirror I saw him, and I closely watched him. I thought how he made out of place. He came to the woman, sat down beside me. He had a strange look on his face. His big hands were calloused. He looked like a mountain. For a minute I thought I was dead. Then he started shaking. His big heart was breaking. He turned to the woman and said, You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille. For hungry children and a crop in the field. I've had some bad times, lived through some sad times, but this time your hurting won't heal. You picked a fine time to leave me, Lucille.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. It has a lovely tone, lovely song, and lovely lyrics. It's the first time that I heard of this song. I'm sure this would be
This is a Kenny Rogers
somewhere in the
country western.
80s,
No, earlier
70s,
70s,
70s.
late 60s, early 70s kind of song.
I think the OG of music are the ones who sang in the 70s and 80s. Now it's more about just the sound rather than the lyrics, because the lyrics was very beautiful. So,
His songs were all stories, and this was
right.
a story as well. Yeah.
Wow, what a wonderful conversation we've had with CK Venkataraman. Great conversation with an exceptional leader. I hope you found today's conversation with CK Venkataraman, the managing director at Titan Company Limited, as inspiring and insightful as we did. The Tanishq story is a testament to the power of vision, resilience, and the impact that great leadership can have, not just on a brand, but on an entire industry. There is lots more in the book, and you can pick up your copy at the nearest Sapna store or online at sapnaonline.com. At SapnaRise, we are committed to bringing you closer to the authors and stories that have the power to change lives. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. We have many more incredible conversations lined up, so stay tuned. This is Nijesh Shah signing off from SapnaRise. Until next time, keep reading, keep dreaming, and keep on rising.